The core design principle of most 3D platformers is building a movement toolset that gives the player multiple ways to move from point A to B, such as a jump, double jump, or dash. All of these movement mechanics either increase vertical height or horizontal distance to variable degrees. However, outside of the game feel of these movement toolsets, what sets apart a platformer from another platformer is how interesting and diverse the journey from point A to B is. This can be done in many ways. However, in most platformers, funnily enough, platforms are key to making the journey as high quality as possible. In this video, I'm going to spend just one day trying to make as many meaningfully different types of platforms that can then be combined and utilized further for increased variety. Hopefully this video will give you your own ideas and inspiration if you're making a 3D platformer, or if you're not, hopefully you just enjoy the video. To start off with, I created a basic platform that can move from its starting point to another point in space. Using the interp movement component in Unreal, as well as a vector variable that can be shown as a 3D widget, it was easy to set them up and ping pong them back and forth based on a set speed. Then I used the same code and system to create a variant with multiple points along its path. Simply adding another vector variable and duplicating the code in the same sequence in the construction script meant I can do this as often as I wanted. Finally, I took that one point base and just changed the vector variable to be vertically different to the platform rather than horizontally, so it would move up and down instead of left and right. So just using the same code and the same base actor, I've created 3 subsets of the basic movement platform. Then I duplicated the basic movement platform but added blueprints to turn it into a crumble platform. The basic idea with this crumble platform is for it to be destroyed after 3 continuous seconds of the player colliding with it. This gives the player some urgency to get moving as soon as they land on this platform, or plan the timing of their jumps beforehand. Using a timeline and a lerp, I can also affect the material of this platform, so the colour starts to change the longer you're on the platform, simulating it crumbling. Finally, I can use the same timeline and lerp logic so that when the player leaves the platform, it reverses the process on the crumbling process so that the platform remains there if the player needs to jump back onto it. And as a side effect, the player can also just continuously jump on it and delay the crumble. As this actor was a duplicate of the basic movement platform, I can also make the crumble platform move. This plays into the player having to pre-plan their jumps, as if they jump onto a crumbling platform but have to wait for the moving platform to get close enough, they might run out of time before the platform they are stood on crumbles. Additionally, depending on the duration of the journey from A to B regarding the crumbling moving platform, the player may have to jump in order to slow down the crumbling process, whilst the platform is moving, adding that extra layer of difficulty. Overall, the crumble platform is to serve one purpose, to encourage urgency and forward planning, and I think it does this. Next we have the classic bouncy platform. This again has the same movement platform base, but when the player collides with the platform, it takes the character movement component's jump velocity, multiplies it, and launches that player by the outcome of that multiplication on the z-axis. Making these platforms move or crumble will add even more depth to them. Next we have the rotating platform. The point of this platform is just to make it harder to jump on and off of it. The initial rotating platform worked as expected, just using the rotate component. However, what I didn't expect was if you move the variable that tells the actor where to move to outside of the center of the actor, then it doesn't just spin in place and move in a linear direction like I thought, but the mesh and the vector variable actually start to orbit one another. This was completely by accident, but I thought it ended up being quite cool. From what I can tell, this implementation, though hard to predict when placing the platformers as a designer, isn't game breaking as the orbits return to their original location every so often. Next we have flipping platforms, meaning platforms that flip. They flip specifically every time the jump input is registered. If the player lands on the white side, they are fine. If they land on the red side, they die, or they should. At this point in development, I couldn't figure out how to make it so if the player jumped from the white side, they weren't immediately hit by the red side on the platform they just jumped from. As the platform flips almost instantly, the player would always collide with the box collision, which triggers the removal of health. Now I do fix this just later on, so for now I didn't have a consequence for if the player's health went to 0, but I did get the health system in and working. It just needs the consequence adding later on as I figure out the flipping issue. The last new platform mechanic I wanted to add is actually inspired by a few different games, but specifically Astrobot. In Astrobot you can get the elephant power up, which allows you to suck up liquid and create temporary solid platforms. Now doing this without the polish of Astrobot was actually surprisingly easy. Create a variable in the character that is an integer, then create pickups that add to that integer. If the integer is above 0, on an input spawn a crumbling platform at a transformation variable just below and in front of the player. and then of course after doing that -1 from the variable. This works surprisingly well, and you can spawn any actor with the system based on the pickup and what variable it adds to. So you can have pickups which add a rotating platform variable which spawns a rotating platforms, or pickups which give you bouncing platforms, etc. Finally, in the last test for the player in the level, I just combined every part of every platform I had created so far. You have flipping, rotating, moving, bouncy, crumbling platforms that you need to navigate through in order to get to the end of the level. Now, if we factor in all of these platform types, moving, crumbling, bouncing, rotating, and flipping, in theory, you can combine these all to create 31 unique types of platforms with meaningful changes and challenges. Taking into account the system which allows you to place these yourself, this should create a toolset for any design to create really interesting levels. Now after this, I put in an ending, added a timer, a checkpoint system, packaged the game and sent it to some friends. So here is a sub 60-second speedrun of one of my friends beating the level. So the next day I boosted up the build as it came to me whilst I was making breakfast how to fix the flipping platform issue. Previously I was just trying to delay the damage trigger, when a much simpler fix would be to just delay the flip by a few milliseconds. This is how it would work in the game anyway, as there would be an actual flip animation, so you wouldn't just go from one side to another immediately. So I implemented it and it works well. With that I plugged the trigger for death into the checkpoint system and it worked surprisingly well. Especially after spending an hour the day before stuck on it completely. And there we are, pretty happy with how it all went. Now, of course, this is just a prototype. The hardest part about game development isn't prototyping, it's actually making the game fun, look great, and run great. However, hopefully this video taught you something, or at the very least gave you an idea if you are stuck on something in your own game. I started the GDL Lab series to put some of my theories into practice, but mainly it was just to get better at Unreal, and I think this has helped, honestly. Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe, and if you want more GDL Lab stuff, please leave a like. Tune in next week for another entry into the game design library, and keep on keeping on.